Well, I want to go over something on how to make exclusion zone water, and it's a little bit more of a theory than actually reality because I don't think actually real scientists or medical researchers really acknowledge that it's something that is some real per se. But well, let me put it this way: they call it exclusion zone water. It's actually the body's water in the body is actually in your body, inside your cells, right? It's H3O2. It's not H2O. H2O is regular water, but the actual body's water is H3O2. Now, there's a couple theories on actually how to make this. Maybe adding H2O2 to water, a couple drops of food grade. Maybe, maybe not. But I just want to go over one of Hulda Clark's methods. And actually, I distill my water. Now, if you're going to use distilled water to make easy water, exclusion zone water, or H3O2, it does not work with distilled water. So I remineralize it. I just put a little natural sea salt in here, a tiny bit, not a lot. But I distill it because I take all the impurities out of the water, even though this is coming from a well. And I probably just start with the well water too, but I'd rather just purify it. I use this water distiller, and then I add a little bit of natural sea salt to it to remineralize it slightly. Now, natural sea salt, actually, Himalayan salt would actually be better because it would contain all the most of the minerals you need. But what I would do here is use a magnetic pulsar in the north side. The north side is what you want to use, not the south side. You want to use the north side. Actually, this is per Hulda Clark. So I'm using her Clark zapper, turn it on, or Clark magnetic pulsar, turn it on, and it's going to pulse for 20 minutes through this water. And what I'm going to do is I'll drink it right after, or not all of it, but I'll drink some of it after, after it's done and the timer goes off. Theoretically, this should be an easy way to make exclusive zone or easy water to H3O2. I know I've heard there's different things you could do with the light, infrared light, pressurized water. And actually, you're not supposed to start out with distilled water. I did start out with distilled water, but I put a little bit of minerals in it because, I've been actually looking at some of the medical research journals. I'm an amateur. I'm not a medical doctor or anything like that, but I found out that you don't want to have water that has a lot of salt in it, but a very little bit is actually better. So I don't want to start out with 100% pure distilled water because actually this magnetic pulsing, when you're actually trying to attempt to make this exclusive zone water, this easy water, this H3O2, it does not work with distilled water. That's the theory. This is not even being accepted by the mainstream scientific and medical world, but it's coming on pretty strong recently because what's going on is, and here you can see I'm pulsing. Here's the pulsar. It's going through the north side of the magnetic pulsar. But it's attempting to change the structure of some of the water. It actually said, Hulda Clark actually talked about this, pulsing the water with the north side of the magnetic pulse and drinking it. Because I hopefully this is a scientific fact because I've been trying to study this for days and weeks or whatever it is. I heard about it years ago, and but what the water is that's inside the cells itself, it's not H2O. It's actually H3O2. They call it exclusive zone water, easy water, and it's actually a good part of the water that comes out of glaciers under pressure, or actually from actual ice cold water, like right before it freezes. Actually, if you take in very cold water, a little bit of it is this easy water, this exclusive zone water. And actually from deep wells, he said the pressure actually forms it. And another way is actually to put a slight negative charge into the water itself. So I have a slight amount of salt in the distilled water because you're not supposed to use distilled water because it will not work because it's like just too pure. It's got to be something, there's got to be a little bit, like well water be the best. And since I distill the well water, I decided, to put a slight amount of sea salt back into it before I do this. Now, I could say this is experimental, but what it may turn out to be, because I know this is being sold for pretty big bucks, And I'm not selling this stuff. I'm just stating I have these things already, and I'm just doing this experiment from the best knowledge I can glean from the most responsible resources I could possibly get. And actually, you know, some people say Hulda Clark was this and that, but I think a lot of her ideas were correct. And the water that's inside our body cells actually does have a slight negative charge. So would it not be better to use the magnetic pulsar on some spring water or some good quality tap water or some remineralized distilled, not pure distilled water, but the distilled water you added a little minerals to put this negative charge back into the water? Would it not be a good idea to do that? And now she thought so. I'm looking into a lot of what her work was. I'm really thinking that some of her work, some of it's extreme, maybe it's a little bit too much worrying about everything that's out there that's a toxin to your body, but some of this is pretty simple to do. I know they sell water alkalizers that change the water to give it a little bit of a negative charge to it. They put negative ions in it. Actually, when you make distilled water, when it's fresh, not distilled water, excuse me. When you make colloidal silver, when it's fresh, actually that has a little bit more of the negative ions in it when it's fresh. It's actually the negative ions will be in that water when it's fresh, and they dissipate after a while. And so I plan to, like, when I run this for about 20 minutes, I'll drink this water. And if it provides more energy and things, why not? That could be something along the same lines of what's going on with the ozonated water, because you're adding a little bit of oxygen to the water with the O2, and maybe in some cases you're changing the structure to this exclusive zone water too. I'm not sure, because there's been a lot of different talk and theories about this, but I think the only hard fact I can glean from this is that the water that's in the actual cells in the body is H3O2. And it would be ideal if you could take that in instead of H2O. In other words, taking the exact thing that the body requires. So I'm using this little experiment. Actually, Dr. Hulda Clark, the microbiologist, doctor with PhD, microbiologist, recommended doing this. And you use the north side of the actual magnetic pulsar to pulse the water. So that's what I'm going to do, and it's really experimental for your informational purposes only. I don't know, if this is going to give you a big boost of energy or not, but it's if you have a magnetic pulsar, you might want to try some experimenting with this, because instead of just pulsing the body, you might try to do this. This is something that Dr. Hulda Clark actually recommended doing.